I didn't catch them kissing. I caught a sound and a choice. The sound was the hollow thunk of an old pickup door closing. The kind of sound you learn by heart if you've spent enough nights outside an AA hall in Tulsa waiting to feel normal. The choice was mine. The hall had emptied. The lot was mostly quiet. And in the far corner, where the floodlight dies halfway along the gravel, Brad's silver Silverado was parked with its lights off. My wife Carly slid into the passenger seat. They didn't turn the key. They just sat, two silhouettes pressed together by the dark. I stood under the half-burned bulb by the soda machine, knowing I could walk over, bang on the window, make a scene. Instead, I listened to the slam of that door, felt something inside me try to slam shut with it, and did nothing. I'm 38, and I know what I used to drink has a smell you can never fully wash out. I also know engines. I can listen to a car at idle and hear the lifter chatter, the tiny whine of a failing belt, the cough that means bad plugs. My trade is reading the little things that go wrong and predicting the big ones. I had 12 months sober when this happened. I had a sponsor named Brad who drove that Silverado with the leveling kit, the one that sits a hair too high in the front like it's trying to look over you. I had a wife I loved, and I had a quiet I felt growing into a storm. The inciting incident is supposed to be clean in stories, a line, a truth, a reveal. In real life, it's a smear. That night, after the meeting on 41st, I watched them sit there in a car that didn't turn its lights on for a very long time. The window fog edged white in the November air. The dashboard glowed the way a sleeping animal breathes. I stared at the soda machine like it could make decisions for me. Then I walked to my own car and drove home on the dark seam of the Arkansas River, telling myself every exit ramp was a bar and my hand stayed steady anyway. Our house is south of I-44, a one-story ranch that still smells a little like the first owner's cigarettes if the heat kicks on too hard. Carly worked as an office manager for a dental practice off Yale. She was good at it. She had neat stacks of forms and a way of calming nervous people. That's how she'd been when I first met her, standing behind a folding table at a church bake sale, making lines look like a blessing. When I got sober a year ago, she started coming to open meetings sometimes. She told me Brad looked like the kind of man who gets a lot done and doesn't say much. I told her he was a good sponsor and that helped with the hard days. When she came home that night, she smelled like the perfume she saves for holidays. The one in the heavy square bottle I bought her after my first 60 days with a note that said, "For when we get back to who we meant to be." She said the meeting ran long. She said she and some people stuck around to do chairs and talk. She said, "I'm beat," and put her head on my shoulder while I was sitting at the kitchen table making a list of break jobs. Her hair brushed my cheek. The perfume was a silver bell ringing in a familiar room. I thought I must be imagining things, the way suspiciousness stains everything once it starts. In the morning, there was a lipstick mark on a to-go coffee lid that wasn't ours, something about the shade. Carly keeps two colors in a mug by the sink. This was brighter, newer, the red they give names like Ruby Tuesday or Santa Monica. Also in the pile of mail was something that didn't belong, a ticket from the city of Tulsa, violation number in tiny print, 30 bucks for parking after hours in a lot near River Parks. The timestamp read 1012 a.m., 2 nights ago. I looked at the location code and pictured the lot by the pedestrian bridge, the one where teens go to practice handbrake turns and grown men go to practice being teens. A bad feeling ran through me, fast and clean. I put the ticket back under the pile because I didn't know what to do with it yet. There are languages you learn in sobriety. One is the language of rooms, who sits where, who stacks chairs, who tells their story like they're auditioning for a role, who tells it like they're bleeding out and it's a towel. Another is the language of whisper. The whisper lives in the spaces between coffee pours and ashtrays and styrofoam cups in the trash. You can feel it before you hear it. A few nights after the parking ticket, I walked into the hall and the whisper was already moving, quick and shy, and then one of the old-timers I trust. Wayne, who's got a jaw like a cartoon bulldog and hands that built 1,000 fence posts, put a palm on my shoulder and squeezed. "Maybe stick close to you tonight," he said, soft, as if I were a skittish horse. That meeting, I didn't see Carly because she said she had to close at the office. I sat near the front and listened to a newcomer try out the word powerless like it was a joke and a death sentence. Brad chaired. He was steady as always, his voice two shades below mine, the kind that can make an apology sound like a verdict. At the break, he made his way to me. "You good?" he asked. "You look spun." "Long week," I said, taking a coffee. "Work's crazy. Carly's tired." He nodded. "We'll do a step 5 again if you need to. Get it all out. Keep you pointed." It should have felt like support. It felt like someone reminded me they own the map. I started looking for signs, which is a bad game for a mechanic with a mind like mine. That night, I pulled our home camera timelines and saw the front door creak open at 4:48 a.m. 2 nights ago, Carly entering with her flats in her hand. The health app on my phone told me she'd done 7,000 steps between midnight and 2. She said in the morning she wanted fresh air after the meeting, to walk the loop at the park. The loop is 2 miles. She'd done more than 3 times that. At the garage, a CRV came in with a dash cam that needed a hard reset. I kept the card to test it and, like a fool, plugged it into my workstation during lunch. The timeline software, a mirror of the thing I wasn't ready to look at home. You start watching, and you can't stop. On Saturday, Carly said there was a service commitment I should attend. Coffee set up for the Sunday night group. I went. A couple of the women there looked at me too long and looked away, the whisper again. I felt it like a draft that never stops no matter how you tape the windows. When I got back to our place on 66th Street, there was a receipt on the counter for a parking ticket paid online at 10,004 a.m. I held it like it was a piece of hot metal. When Carly came back from running errands, her cheeks had the wind glow that looked like health on her. She moved around the kitchen with the ease I fell in love with years ago. The domestic choreography that made me think life could be a line you step into and ride all the way clean. Want tacos tonight? She asked. We could try that new spot on Harvard. Where were you Thursday after the meeting? I asked. It came out like I had practiced it 100 times, and maybe I had. He kept moving, a hand on the drawer, then still. I told you, she said. Walk. I couldn't sleep. In River Parks, I said. After hours, ticket at 1 or 2s. She turned slowly. Her mouth shaped a smile that wasn't one. Yes, she said. I paid it because you would make a thing of it. I am making a thing out of it, I said. I'm making a thing out of everything right now. We ate tacos anyway. They were worse than they should have been. When it moved from suspicion to evidence, it happened with the quietness big things always seem to wear. Monday morning, I took the Durango to work like I always do. The shop on Peoria was slam-packed after a cold snap, dead batteries everywhere. Midday, a quick trip receipt popped up as a notification on our joint account. Not unusual, but the details were off the pump number and timestamp. I tapped. At 12:23 a.m. last night, a purchase at the Quick Trip by the 71st Street exit, $21 of gas, a bottle of water, a pack of gum. I'd been home asleep, and our Durango was full. The only other vehicle we sometimes use is Carly's Civic. She said last night she had a headache and went to bed before 9. I went outside behind the shop to where the smokers go so I could breathe air that didn't judge. I tried to remember that checking accounts and health apps don't make character assessments. They find times and miles. They don't say why. And then my phone buzzed again with a calendar invite from Brad for a step study Wednesday. The subject line read, "Keeping your side of the street clean." My armpits went cold. The two things, together, a receipt and a line out of an AA slogan, wouldn't make sense to most people. To me, they felt like threads pulled tight in a loop. Around then, the group started talking without talking. At a crosstalk heavy meeting on 11th Street, two women I barely know mentioned 13th stepping, the old dirty joke that isn't funny, someone in the program exploiting someone new or vulnerable and calling it love. People nodded. Eyes slid toward me. My sponsor caught my gaze and held it steady. We didn't speak there. We spoke on my front porch the next night. He showed up with that measured slouch, hat brim shadowing the eyes. He asked to sit. I said yes. We sat. The neighborhood was the kind of quiet you can hear your bones in. He put his palms on his knees like a man about to pray or confess. I'm gonna say this the way I know how, he said. I crossed the line. You know how your heart will try to leave your body sometimes? It went, then came back. It took me a second to realize I hadn't actually fallen. I was still in a chair, still a man holding a coffee, still a porch with a crack in the third step you keep meaning to fix. I should have pulled back from making amends with her alone, he said. Things got blurry. We started talking too much. That's on me. I don't want you to blow up the group over this. We've got guys with one day that need those doors open. Don't come there swinging. Don't make us all suffer for a mistake. I laughed in a way that didn't sound like laughing. You're asking me not to ruin your reputation, I said. He shook his head slowly. I'm asking you not to make the rooms unsafe for the sick and suffering. I'm asking you to keep what's between adults between adults. Adults, I said. The word clanked. You're my sponsor. She's my wife. I'm stepping down from sponsoring you, he said, and winced like that would land gentle if he softened the edges. Find Wayne, or someone, and if you can, don't drink over this. It was the only time his voice shook. I haven't yet, I said. After he left, the porch felt bigger and emptier. I could hear a train going somewhere. People don't speak to each other. I took my coffee into the kitchen, poured it out, poured a glass of water, poured it out. I did that a few times until it felt like an action instead of a symbol. You want some cinematic moment where the lie collapses and sunlight cleans the dust. What I got were more artifacts. The next one was from a session at the shop. A customer gave me a USB stick to load an ECU file. I opened the wrong folder. It was just a bunch of MP3s and a file called TripLog. Curiosity is a weed. I clicked. It was an app export GPS breadcrumb of a path along Riverside Drive stamped at 12:58 a.m. Tuesday, a little loop toward a cheap motel that rents by the week. It wasn't mine, it wasn't Carly's. I closed it and had to sit down, because somehow another person's trail recruited my brain into proving what it already believed. Later that week, Carly asked me why I was quieter than usual. I said I was trying not to break things I couldn't fix. She said, "You're scaring me." I said, "Same." The health app on her phone kept telling stories without knowing it was a witness. Saturday morning, she went for groceries and came back with a case of bottled water and a half dozen bruises on her shins she brushed off as bumping a cart. Her step count said she had walked 10,000 steps in a 2-hour window in the dark. You don't do that in a grocery store. The lipstick had changed from bright to a safer pink. That night, she kissed my cheek and told me she loved me. The real crime in any betrayal is the good moments. If you could hate purely, it would be easier. I talked to Wayne after a meeting in the gravel lot with the floodlights stuttering. He listened with his hands in his jacket pockets like a man warming his palms at a trash fire. He didn't interrupt much. When I told him about the porch talk, he nodded like he'd already guessed pieces. I can't tell you what to do, he said. I can tell you I've walked guys through worse and they stayed sober and found their way. You change sponsors. You go to different meetings for a bit. You don't play hero and you don't play victim. You do what you need to do for your sanity and your kids if you've got them, and you never ever use a drink like it's a bandage. We don't have kids, I said. It surprised me that my voice did a thing at that. You got you, he said. You got a life worth a damn. Let the facts be facts and the feelings be feelings and don't confuse them for each other. Monday morning, Carly's Civic threw a check engine, the gas cap thing, easy fix. I took it around back at the shop and popped the gas door. That's when I saw the edge of the parking ticket I'd put back under the mail. She kept it in the glove box like an artifact she couldn't fully face, paid and folded, the crease like a scar. Next to it was a business card for a motel called the Walnut Inn out by the BA Expressway, the kind of place where I've done field repairs on cars people meant to abandon. The card had a little note in blue pen, RB214. I think I actually felt my pupils dilate. The room number sat on my tongue like a fast-acting poison. I wish I could tell you I confronted her right then like a man in a movie and demanded truth and got it and felt something like relief. I put the glove box back together, I did the gas cap thing, I wrote up the job, I went to lunch and ate a burger that tasted like cardboard. For what it's worth, I didn't drink. I drank a soda that made my teeth feel like they were wearing sweaters. I sat in my truck afterward and watched a bar across the street open for the day and thought about walking across like it was a crosswalk to a different life. That night, the choice became a character in our kitchen. It stood between us while the news talked about weather. I turned the TV off. I looked at the woman I took vows with in a room with bad acoustic tiles and better cake. I tried to pull up the first day we met like a file. The memory that surfaced was her steadying a stack of paper plates against a wind gust in a parking lot. So calm, so ordinary. That was the magic. I set my hands on the table, palms down. Did you and Brad cross? I asked. I used the word cross because that's how he said it. It felt wrong in my mouth and right in the moment, both at once. She closed her eyes like the sun had flashed too bright. When she opened them, there was a lot of water there and not many words. The first thing she said was not the expected no, it was a different kind of broken yes. Yes, she said. I'm sorry. I sat with that. The clock over the stove kept doing its job. The house's old ductwork did its little clicks. Somewhere a dog barked like we were on a stage set for average American scene. How long? I asked. A few months, she said. After you got 9 months, he helped me with feeling like I was always second to your sobriety. I'm not excusing it. He was my sponsor, I said. I know, she said. I'm sorry. Did you love him? I asked, and the second I did, I wanted to take it back, because that's the question that doesn't tell you anything you can use. I don't know, she said. I think I loved how he looked at me. I think I loved that I felt chosen. I hate that I'm saying this. I hate myself right now. It was wrong. It's wrong. I kept my hands palm down. I didn't stand. I didn't throw things. I didn't list the evidence like a cop. I didn't talk about health apps or parking tickets or room 214 or the way her hair smelled like December on a Thursday. I didn't because the yes had done its brutal work and didn't need a supporting cast. What do you want? I asked. She didn't answer for a long time. Then she said, to not be the person who did this. Her voice cracked like a heat-hit windshield you barely touch and it goes to sky. To fix it. We can't fix this, I said. I wasn't trying to be cruel, it was just suddenly and painfully true, like when a wrench slips and your knuckles learn something about physics. We can decide what we do next. We decided we'd sleep at opposite ends of the house for the night and talk in the morning. That night, I lay in a living room that had held a dozen small holidays and the memory of a sober birthday cake with a candle burning too hot at the edges, and I stared at the ceiling like it could give me a script. I got up at midnight and put on my boots and drove, not to the bar, but past two of them, just to look, just to let the neon try to seduce me and fail. I parked outside the Derby, which used to be the Derby, when it was a place I half lived, and I sat in my truck with the engine off and put my hand on the key like you do when you need to feel the shape of a decision. I didn't go in. In the morning, I called Wayne and asked him to be my sponsor for now. He said yes without a lecture. I told him I needed to hit other meetings for a while. He gave me a list. I asked if there was any protocol for a sponsor sleeping with a sponsee's wife. He said there isn't, not really. There's just people and the things they do and the fallout the rest of us try to sweep up without cutting our hands to ribbons. I came back to the house with a box of trash bags and a roll of tape. Carly was at the kitchen table with red eyes and a legal pad. She'd made a list. Carly always makes a list when the ship starts listing. On it were blank bullet points and headers like finances and cars and accounts. She was already moving to tasks. I understood it and hated it and loved it because that's who she is, a manager. Your name should be on the shop account, she said. It's your livelihood. The house, my parents gave us the down payment. I don't want to fight over it. I don't want this to be a war. It's not going to be a war, I said. It's going to be a process. We made a temporary plan. She'd stay at her sister's on the west side. We'd split our savings down the middle and not do anything stupid. We'd leave the house as is until we decided whether to sell or refinance. None of it felt like victory. It felt like writing instructions for dismantling a machine we'd spent a decade building. I thought that would be the end of the public part. I was wrong. Communities don't let you choose which parts stay private. People started calling. Not many. 2, 3. One was a woman from the Wednesday group who told me she was sorry and that if I needed a casserole, she could make a mean lasagna. Another was a guy who'd been sponsored by Brad 3 years ago until something happened and he left. He didn't say what, he just said, "I'm glad you're not drinking." Then there was an email, anonymous of course. "You should tell the group he's a predator." That word hit me like a misfired piston. I don't know if it's true. I know what he did to me. I know he crossed a line that AA says we draw in bright chalk and then somehow all our shoes smear it anyway. The shame that belongs to other people will try to live in your house rent-free. I took a day off work and cleaned the place down to the baseboards, the way guys in movies clean blood you can't see. I found the perfume bottle I'd bought, half gone. I found a dried flower pressed in a book, a ticket stub to a movie we saw on a date when I was a month sober, so sweet it made me dizzy. I found a photo strip of us in one of those sit-in booths at Woodland Hills Mall, her laugh exploding in the third frame, me trying to kiss her in the fourth and missing because I was looking at the camera. There was so much proof that we had been us that it made the new proof feel like it had arrived by train from the wrong town. I carried it all room to room like it might rearrange the past if I moved it enough. My worst moment wasn't the confession. It came at a red light on 31st by a liquor store I know too well. It was raining one of those Tulsa rains that move across roadways like a muscle. The light held me while the bar's open sign blinked and blinked and blinked. My hands were on the wheel. I wanted everything to quiet. I wanted oblivion like a warm hand on my neck. I thought about how you could step into a place, drink twice, and the pain would go sideways, and maybe when it came back it would be less bright. Then I looked down at my phone and the lock screen had that stupid picture of my own goofy face Carly took on a canoe last summer down by Turkey Mountain, my hat backward, my eyes squinting, water everywhere. I heard Wayne's voice in my head. "A drink won't unlodge the knife, it'll make you forget it's there while you bleed out." I drove through the red when it changed. I went home, I made coffee, I poured it out, I made tea, I poured it out, and then I did the corniest thing I've ever done. I read the first step out loud in my living room like a man trying to teach a ghost how to leave. The next careening piece of life was the group. I stopped going to the one where Brad chaired. I chose a Tuesday meeting across town, smaller, harsher fluorescent lights, worse coffee perfect. I raised my hand and said I was John, alcoholic, and my life felt like a set of tires that had been overinflated and left in the sun and were now popping one at a time. I didn't say why. The room said welcome in the way only strangers can because they don't know how to pretend otherwise. A guy with a mustache that belonged to 1986 told a story about losing his job and his dog in the same month and staying sober because a stranger brought him a ham sandwich and told him to shut up and go to bed. It somehow helped. Back on our side of town, the whisper did its work. People heard, or thought they had. A woman sent Carly a long message about the ninth step and living amends and taking a long look at how we harm when we think we're healing. It read like a Hallmark card written by a therapist. Carly screenshotted it and texted it to me with the words, "I deserve this," and I didn't know how to answer because I wanted to say she deserved better than a public mounting, and I also wanted to say she deserved exactly what she got, and both things could be true and unhelpful at the same time. We told our families. My mother said she never liked the way Brad's hat sat on his head, which is not a moral assessment, but did make me laugh for the first time in a week. Carly's sister said, "Come stay here until you don't smell like regrets," which is the kind of line only a sister can get away with. We started talking about lawyers like we were ordering parts. Unromantic, useful. We agreed we'd file for legal separation first, see what the math looked like, then talk divorce. We'd keep the house until tax season. We'd share the two cars without being petty, like the partially decent humans we were trying to be amid the wreck. The last time I saw Brad in person, he tried to give me a look that asked forgiveness like it was a glass of water passed over a fence. It was after a meeting I had slipped into without thinking and found him at the back by the literature rack. He opened his mouth. I shook my head and walked past. He said, "Just loud enough, I'm sorry." I didn't answer. Outside, under that same stuttering floodlight, Wayne was waiting by my truck. He handed me a folded piece of paper with a handwritten list of 7 meetings at odd hours around the city, like a map for someone trying to evade being found by his worst instincts. "You're doing all right," he said. "I don't feel all right," I said. "Feelings got nothing to do with it," he said. "You're not drinking. You're telling the truth when the truth is inconvenient. That's adulting, kid." If there was a moment I could point to as a turning point, it might have been when I stopped inventorying her and started inventorying me. I made a list of my resentments and realized how much of my dark thinking liked to position me as an innocent man attacked by villains. I was hurt, sure. I was also controlling romantic about my own pain and catastrophically bad at asking for what I needed. The program teaches you how to unbraid your self-justifications and lay them out in the light. It's not comfortable, it is honest. I wrote Brad's name, I wrote Carly's name, I wrote Carly's name. I wrote my own name in block letters and circled it and told the truth about my part, that I built sobriety like a fortress and sometimes forgot to invite my wife inside. Don't mistake this for making excuses for them. It's not a circle where everyone holds hands and sings. It's where you stop letting your story be the only story you can live with. We signed papers, we cried a lot, we were awkwardly kind, then kind again. Carly went back to the group with the fluorescent lights and asked a woman there to be her temporary sponsor. The shame made her neck blotchy. She kept going anyway. She stopped wearing the perfume for a while because she said it made her sad. I took on an extra shift at the shop and let my hands tell me what to do and my head didn't know. I fixed a radiator leak on a truck a boy had saved all summer for. I replaced brake pads for a grandmother who kept her grandkids safe by making sure things stopped when they were supposed to. I felt useful and useless in alternating waves, which is to say I was alive. I ended up at the bar again once, not inside, just in the lot. It was a Wednesday. The Derby sign flickered like it had developed a stutter. I stood there with my hands in my pockets and tried to think of the last time booze solved a problem long term. I couldn't think of one. I got in my truck and drove to the all-night supermarket, bought a rotisserie chicken and a bag of salad, and ate them both at my table like the saddest bachelor in the central time zone. It wasn't heroic, it was boring and fine, which is to say it was miraculous. The court part was simpler than the life part. We didn't have children, there were no custody battles. There was a house, 2 cars, a stack of accounts, a few retirement crumbs. We divided like grown-ups. The judge's office had a print on the wall of a vast Wyoming sky that made me want to drive until my truck forgot my name. We signed, we left, it rained, because of course it did. Tulsa does November like it's auditioning for a film about gray. I went to a meeting and told a shortened version of the truth and got 3 hugs and a joke about how my higher power must really want me to work the steps again. And then I went home to the quiet and put a pot of coffee on and didn't drink it. People wanted a villain. We always do. I am tempted to give them one. I am tempted to tell you that Brad was a cheat and a narcissist and that Carly was weak and hungry and careless. But the truth knocks and says something smaller. He broke a trust. She broke a vow. I stayed sober. It doesn't sound like enough until you realize it's the only thing that kept me from turning one wreck into 3. A month after we signed, I was back at the hall on 41st, not for the meeting, for the smell, the coffee and the old chairs and the cheap soap. I stood in the doorway and watched new people come in, the ones with eyes like startled animals, and I remembered being them. Wayne came up beside me. "You good?" he asked. "I think so," I said. "I think I can say I'm grateful and not be lying." "For what?" "For what didn't happen," I said. "For what did. For having a life to be wrecked and repaired." He nodded. "Say it at the meeting. Make some other poor bastard feel less alone." I didn't speak that day. I went and sat in the back and listened, and when the newcomer with the shaking hands said he felt like the world was a machine he didn't know how to operate anymore, I smiled because I knew the manual now. It wasn't in some drawer, it was the people around me. It was me choosing again and again to not turn the key the wrong way. A week later, I saw Carly at a grocery store at 11 at night, hair tucked into a beanie, moving slow. We stood by a display of oranges that looked like props. She asked me how I was. I said better. I asked her if she was going to meetings. She said yes, different ones. She said, "I'm sorry," like a daily prayer. I told her to keep going. I told her I was proud of her for not hiding. We didn't hug. We didn't flirt with forgiveness. We put citrus in our carts and nodded and walked away. There's a perfume ad of a life where betrayal becomes art, where the camera pans out and a city becomes a jewel, and everyone is beautiful in the way good choices make you. My life doesn't look like that. My life looks like a guy who keeps the receipts, not because he wants to catch anyone, but because it's part of the job. My life looks like a coffee that goes cold while a friend tells a story that saves his life and mine. My life looks like a bar I keep not walking into. The reason you stay sober isn't because you're better than the problem. It's because you finally understand you're not. One Sunday morning, I drove out to River Parks, parked legally like a square, and walked the loop Carly said she walked that night. I walked it twice. I counted the steps because I'm that kind of person. The river was gray-green, a kid rode a scooter and almost took out a jogger, and both of them laughed and apologized at the same time. I stopped at the pedestrian bridge and looked down at the water, which pretended to know where it was going. I didn't feel dramatic, I felt tired and alive. I put my hand on the railing, the metal was cold, so was the air on my teeth. I thought about room 24 in a parking ticket and a word like cross that tries to make a hole hurt into a neat geometry. Then I thought about how boring it is to be decent and how much work it is, and how you only ever learn that by doing it. When I got back to my truck, I checked my health app by habit and saw the steps count blink into a round number. No angels sang. I just sat there and felt my bones inside my skin, and the way my heart was a metronome I couldn't control, ticking anyway. I turned the key. The engine caught. The lifters sounded healthy. The belt didn't whine. I drove home. The moral, if you need one, is small. Sometimes a betrayal isn't a test of your marriage or your capacity for revenge. Sometimes it's a test of whether you can keep your hand off the one thing you think will quiet it all down. I didn't drink when my life fell apart. That won't win me any medals. It bought me my life. Would you have told the whole group what happened to force a reckoning? Or kept it contained to protect the rooms and your own sanity? Where is the line between protecting a community and letting a predator hide behind it? And how would you draw it if it were you? If this story hit you, drop a comment, and if you want more like it, subscribe.